Derek Rougeau here with Rougeau Knives, and I'm here to talk about knife sharpening and some of the different techniques and processes involved. Right here I have a couple of my pocket knives, and I just want to demonstrate real quick the Lansky sharpening kit that is pretty popular, but I don't use this much. I do use it on my pocket knives from time to time. This one has, let's see, extra coarse, medium, and fine stone, and then it also has a serration stone, and these are all diamond stones. They give you some honing oil that I normally don't use. As long as you're using the stone, you just take it and you wipe it off, get all the particles off, and that keeps it cutting nice and evenly. So the way the system works is you have your clamp here. I typically use tape to protect the blade to keep from scratching it. And I lock it into place so that way it's sturdy. You attach your rod, and then each of these slots is a different degree of angle for sharpening. So you have, see if I can get this in the frame better, there you go. So you have 30, 25, 20, and 17. So at this point, I've already established that this knife has a 30-degree angle. So I'm just going to come in here, line it up, and then you just start dragging your stone across it like this until you cover the entire blade. And what I'm doing here is I'm not pressing as I push this way away from the edge. I'm pressing as I pull into the edge, and that's pretty much what you want to do when you're sharpening a knife. So I've already touched this up quite a bit. Now I'm looking at it in the light. I don't know if you can see that, but you look at it in the light and you can see how it's starting to smooth out the edge. So you work it on that side. I'm just going to do this real quick. I'm not going to get into a whole lot of detail here because I really don't want to bore everybody with all this. This is just the basics of sharpening knives, some of the tools. You can go online, find some other videos that really get into a lot of depth, but I'm just going to give you a quick overview of some of these techniques. So I'm just going to drag into the cutting edge, pressing harder as I drag in on either side of this knife. And I can see here that it has definitely got the right angle on the knife. There's a little spot here that I need to touch up on. And this knife really wasn't that dull. I'm using the finest stone out of the kit. And then I'm just going to check it here. And that is pretty damn sharp. One of the ways you determine whether a knife is sharp or not is obviously not by dragging your finger across the edge like that. This is extremely sharp, and basically you're just going to slice your finger right open and you won't even feel a thing. But what you want to do is you want to take your thumb or finger and just drag it across the edge like this. And the scratchier and rougher it feels, the sharper it is, because what's happening is this edge is actually biting into the pattern, the texture within your finger. So it's just slightly grabbing, and that is pretty sharp. So you want to do it on that side, and you want to do it on this side as well. And as you can see, I'm dragging across and down slightly so that you can get a nice bite. And you can probably hear that. So that's really sharp. Now also what you want to do is you want to drag your finger this way, and what you're doing is you're checking for burrs. So as you sharpen a knife, the metal ends up curling up and it creates a burr on one side or the other. A lot of times under good light, now when you're sharpening knives you definitely want to use good light. But under good light you can see the burr, but you can also do this and feel it. So this side has no burrs and this side has no burrs. So that is a sharp knife. And you can also visually inspect it by looking at the reflection of the light across the edge. You can also take the edge, put it against the light this way so the light's pointing down, and then if you see any little shiny spots, then you can check that area and you can figure out whether or not that is probably dull and you need to work on that area. So there's a couple tips on how to check to see if a knife is sharp. So now, sharpening serrations. Serrations can be painstakingly tedious. I don't do them very often, but every now and then you gotta do it. So there's a few ways to do it. The set that I was using to sharpen the other knife here has this piece here that you can set up in the jig, and you can find the correct angle and you can go in and sharpen each one. However, you only have one diameter of this this radius here, and which means when you're working each notch of the serration, you have to kind of sway it back and forth on each one to get it to smooth all that out and to get it sharp. Another inexpensive tool is one of these, and this is also a fine diamond sharpening rod, and each radius is a different radius on the three corners of this rod. So they line up pretty well, and I typically use this. You would grab the little bastard. There we go. There's the big. This is the widest radius. So I'm going to focus on the widest radius of the serration and go in there and find your angle, and then just slowly work it. And then once again, you look at the reflection in the light and see how you're affecting each little notch. So you go through and you do all that, then you switch to the other radius, you do your fine teeth, you go in and do that, and just keep an eye on things. And you know, it's pretty simple. It's just take your time. It takes a while to do serrations, to do it right, and you'll get it. Just be patient. So what we have here are natural stones. This is a large 2-grit stone. It has a coarse on one side and then a fine on the other, even though it's more like a medium. It is more of your fine stone. I used to use these. I really don't use them much anymore. But the process is basically you just take some oil. I use this a lot, 3-in-1. You just put a little stream, start working it, and you sharpen your knife. Okay, now I don't want to get into a whole lot of detail about that. There's plenty of videos online, but I typically stay away from stones, these kind of stones, because I have a lot of stainless steel blades, and also I prefer diamond. So let's go ahead and switch over to sharpening with diamond stones. So I have 2 diamond stones here. This one here I bought at Harbor Freight. It was like 15 bucks. It was really cheap. And it has a 200, 300, 400, and 600 grit. I'm going to go with 6 because this knife is already relatively sharp. It's, you know, for the price, it's a great deal. But if you're doing a lot of sharpening, then I recommend upgrading to a better stone. This will get you by if you only sharpen things once in a while. But I tend to sharpen a lot of stuff. And I use diamond stone, so I stick with this. This one here is a Smith. These cost about 50, 60, well, 50 bucks, right around there. One side is this one's a medium, and then this one's a fine. Once again, I don't use oil on these, so I just make sure that I wipe them off and get all the excess metal off there, all the little grit. That way you have a nice clean diamond surface to start sharpening on. So this knife here is hollow ground. It's Damascus steel, and it's already, yeah, it's a little sharp. It could need some touching up. Now this knife I try to keep a fairly keen edge on because I use it a lot. I carry this quite a bit. So when you're sharpening on a stone, what you want to do is you want to be able to lay the blade or the edge on the stone, and then have your light properly set up so that you can see a shadow being casted underneath the edge. And then once you see that shadow, you just slowly rotate the blade until that shadow disappears. And then also you can kind of feel it when it locks in the place where you're hitting that edge. Another technique you can use to establish the right angle when you're sharpening a knife is using a marker, and then you just go in and you black out the edge. And as you grind, well, obviously you're going to start seeing the silver back through, or the steel through the marker. So I'm just going to hit this real quick. Alright. So you lay it down, you look for your shadow, and then you establish the feel of it. And then once you establish it, then you just pretty much hold it straight and you drag forward like this. Now you can drag it back, it's fine, but you're putting your pressure as you drag forward. And yes, these things slide around. I'm not pushing real hard. Well, actually, there we go. I'm pushing a little bit better there. And look in the edge, and it's pretty good. My angle is slightly off, so I can reestablish that. And this is kind of the pace I go at. There we go. So you hit that side there. A little bit on the back end here. And also I'm changing the pressure, so if you need more work here, you're pressing harder here. If you need more work on this side, you're pressing harder here. Okay, and then we'll switch it. Establish your angle. Angle's good. I'm pressing a little harder on the back end because it needs a little more work. There we go. And then your tip, you know, basically same thing, establish your angle, and then you're dragging into it. Check to see if it's scraping the marker off in the right spot. It is. Tip needs a little work. And then the same here. And also, because this is a rounded tip on the end here, I'm kind of rocking it so that you get a nice even grind on there. There we go, got that good. And then you start feeling it. And you know, for demonstration purposes, I'm going to say that's sharp. Actually, there's a spot here. But you just keep working it until you're happy with it. Nice and sharp. Alright, all the markers gone. Now, I'm feeling if it's sharp, and I'm checking for burrs, and there is a slight burr on there. Now, when dealing with burrs, you have two ways you can handle it. You can use leather like this. I use this a lot with the big knives when I first make them. And you just drag it backwards. Not against it, but backwards. Like that. And it kind of helps polish it and get rid of the burrs. You can also put some rouge on there, some compound for buffing, and that helps polish it a little bit. So that's one technique. Another one is using a ceramic rod. Here's a larger rod I use a lot. And basically you're just lightly dragging it at the appropriate angle on there. And this also helps polish the edge and give it a more keener edge on there and get rid of the burrs at the same time. Looks good, no burrs. And you know, it's pretty sharp. I mean, it can use some more work obviously, but for just that short period of time, I definitely established a better edge on that knife. So that's sharpening this, which is a hollow ground Damascus blade. Now this knife here is a larger, larger knife, more of a hunting style knife, and it's a flat grind, and I've kind of done a convex grind on this, so it's not perfectly straight. I kind of want to keep a tough edge on this. And this here is the same process, but you may want to kind of rock it just a little bit, just to kind of give that rounded edge to it. And this one you want to continue, because of the blade is just a nice sweep there. You just want to start back here, find your angle, and then just follow through as much as possible. Okay, we'll do it this way. So it's a pretty long knife. And then we'll focus on the tip here. You can see where it's nice and shiny, right where it needs to be. Oh yeah. Well, I didn't need much work at all. Then we'll just get rid of the burrs and polish the edge. So a diamond stone ceramic rod, way to go. I mean, in my opinion, that's what I use. That's nice and sharp. Oh yeah, and don't forget to clean your stone. So after you sharpen for a while, you definitely want to come back and get rid of all that extra debris in there. And diamond stones that have these little holes, that's what the purpose of the hole. The purpose of the hole is so that the debris falls within these little chambers, and it allows the stone to keep cutting. So I also use the diamond stone to sharpen my kitchen knives. It just works really well, but you know, you really don't need to use a stone to keep these knives sharp. Once you establish a really good cutting edge, and then, you know, like this blade here, it's so thin, you know, it's meant for, you know, it's a chef's knife, so you just need to drag it on a ceramic rod from time to time. And I can probably do this, oh, I don't know, 6, 8 times as the knife dulls, just on the rod, and it will reestablish a nice cutting edge. But then after, you know, you get into 8, you know, 9, 10 times you've done that, then at some point you're going to wind up having to go back to the stone, reestablish a nice clean edge again, and then from there on you just keep resharpening with the ceramic stone. I also have this that I played around with, got at a garage sale. I don't use it much. You can, 2 ceramic rods, and then you just kind of go back and forth. And it's not a bad idea, really. I mean, you've got a really good established angle here, and all you're doing is you're just kind of following each angle. So this is another kind of cool product. Acts as the same process of this, of course, it's just ceramic rods. You're just cleaning up the edge. You're not establishing a nice, clean, new edge. So here's a couple other products. You see these at the gun shows and whatnot, you know, sportsmen's shops. And, you know, they're kind of handy, I guess, if you want to do a crude sharpening job. The way it works is you just put it on the counter, against the counter like that, and then you just drag the knife through and it sharpens it that way. They're little rods that have diamonds that are penetrated into them. You know, it works. If you want to be lazy, this works. Personally, I like to take the time and get a nice clean edge. The difference between this and sharpening on a diamond stone are obviously night and day. So there's that. Then I ended up picking one of these up just for something quick in the kitchen to sharpen the kitchen knife. And it is a fine diamond stone rod that's curved, and then you can just drag it on like that. And you know, if you're in a hurry, this works well. But once again, I find that when you're using a flat diamond stone like this, the results are much better if you take the time to do it right. But if you're, you know, in the kitchen, you just want to keep it quick and just quickly put an edge on it, this works well. Now this one here is they consider them chef knife sharpening, electric sharpeners, so chef knives, stuff like that. And I don't recommend these because they remove too much material from the edge. And also they do a hollow grind because there's two wheels in here and they're a little larger than a quarter, and they're convex like this, so when you grind it, it makes a very thin but very sharp edge. And then what happens is as you use the knife, that edge wears out very quickly, so now you got to run it through it again, and it runs out again after you use it, and you keep going back and forth, and eventually your edge starts moving up. You just keep removing the material, and it also changes the edge geometry of the knife. Now regarding edge geometry, I design these knives each for a specific purpose. For instance, this one here is a flat grind, and it has a very tough edge, so it's kind of a hunting knife, but very strong. Now I specifically designed this cutting edge for this knife, and then you have other knives for chopping, more finer work, for sharper cutting. All of these have slightly different edge geometry, and by using one of these electric chef knives, sharpeners, they completely erase that. So I recommend staying away from them. So there you have it. The basics on sharpening your knives, pros and cons, some of the tools. It's really not that tricky. A lot of people get intimidated by sharpening their own knives. It's not that big of a deal. Just a little practice, a little time. There's a lot of information out there. With YouTube anymore, you can go on YouTube and find all kinds of videos on people sharpening their knives, different techniques. I recommend looking at that. This is just a down and dirty kind of overview. So once again, thanks a lot for looking at my videos, and appreciate your comments. Keep them coming, and thanks again.